Morning. It is a beautiful spring day out there, and we have got some great folks here. And I would like to introduce Cliff Winnig. He does this Sunday because we've got BCube Sunday broken up, and Cliff gets the third Sunday. So, Cliff, who do you got, and what are we going to do today?
Well, Bob, we're going to talk about AI, artificial intelligence, not in the HAL 9000 sense, but in the 2023 disrupting some industries sense. And I don't use disrupting as a positive the way that Silicon Valley people do necessarily. So I've got my panel of experts consists of Tony Peak and Thaddeus Howze. And Tony Peak is a science fiction writer. And he has about a dozen books under his belt. If you're in the live chat, you can see the Parallax Space Opera link where you can buy his latest. His interests, however, go beyond science fiction and into science and technology, and he has written extensively about artificial intelligence. And so he is it says it is, by the way, he's a transmedia writer, which I love that word. That's a nice word. That's now in my vocabulary. Someone scanned the QR code it's showing me. Thank you, someone. And he is an active member of SFWA, the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers Association, which is standing in solidarity with the writing strike that's happening in Hollywood right now. He is also an associate member of the HWA, the Horror Writers Association, and is represented by Ethan Allenberg of the Ethan Allenberg Literary Agency. And Thaddeus Howze. Thaddeus Howze. Yeah, my German's crept into my...
Exactly.
Thaddeus Howze is an award-winning writer, editor, and climate podcaster, creating speculative fiction and other social commentary. He has the collection Hayward's Reach, science fiction, and Broken Glass, an urban fantasy novella. He has been the president of the California Writers Club of
VP.
Berkeley, the vice president. Sorry, that was split over two lines, and I missed the vice. Thank you. And teaching artist for Chapter 510 in the Department of Make/Believe, which people can ask him about. He is also the answer man on Quora, and he is exceptionally good at researching various topics and giving very detailed answers, which is one of the reasons why I asked him to be with us today. He has also done a series of essays called Everybody Hates Midjourney. And that was another thing that prompted me to think of him for discussing artificial intelligence. So here we are. And the first thing I would like to discuss, because today's topic is AI and editing. There's been a lot of ink spilled or pixel spilled on art like Midjourney that everybody hates, and a lot spent on writing, so things like ChatGPT, text generative AI. But one of the functions that computers has always had is since the dawn of writing and computing is in some way trying to be helpful. And from like Clippy on Microsoft Windows to Microsoft Word's much hated and much used grammar checker, there have always been things that artificial, not quite intelligence, but artificial, have done to try and help writers. And now we're entering a phase of technology where a certain category of artificial intelligence is doing things that seem to be taking aim at people's jobs. So there's been a reaction. The WGA strike in Hollywood is a reaction in no small part to how Hollywood is treating AI as a script doctor. And that is directly impacts people's livelihood. So would either of you gentlemen like to discuss what AI is and isn't in 2023? And we could start with that.
I don't think it's artificial intelligence. I see it as more of a really incredible data compiler. I mean, it's not really intelligent. It's not sentient. I mean, to me, it's become a catch-all term, which looks really good for, makes good titles for clickbait articles and whatnot, including mine. I mean, but you have to use the terminology. Now, that's not to say that it couldn't evolve into more sophisticated technology, but I feel like it's a misnomer. It's not artificial intelligence. This is not, but at the same time, it feeds into the negativity generated toward the software. Skynet, HAL 9000, the typical sci-fi tropes. So to me, it doesn't really serve either side of the debate.
I'll go ahead and say it. It is not artificial intelligence. We will go ahead and call it machine intelligence, and I'll go one step further and call it machine-assisted intelligence, because one of the problems with the tool is that it cannot create anything new. If I was actually looking for real artificial intelligence, one of the caveats for me would be that it would be able to create something it had never seen before. Our current technology cannot do that. It can only create based on what it was originally given. So you give it something as a part of a database archive that it references using an algorithm, and you ask it a question, say frame that question as, and it will visualize, because it's a chat tool, it'll visualize a way of creating a circumstance that will answer a question that you've posed to it. It is not thinking. And this is the thing I want to stress to everybody every time you use it. I don't care how cool it looks. I don't care how amazing it might sound. It is not there. There is no there. There's nobody on the other end. There's no mind going, I will return information that you need. No, it's just, it's basically a magic 8-ball. Anybody remember the magic 8-ball? What do I, does that girl like me? Look at it. Oh, doesn't appear likely. That's what this is. This is a magic 8-ball that you can control the nature of the output. You can say, answer me in the way a romance writer might answer that question. And then it will go query a bunch of databases from romance novels that have been put into it and go, yeah, I can fake something up, and it will answer that question. But it is not alive. It is not thinking. It's not intelligence. It is a really sophisticated magic 8-ball merged with a parrot, because that's all it is. It isn't creating new stuff. So for me, it's a tool. It's a toy. I look at it as a toy. And even the creator of OpenAI called it a toy. So when the person who created it called it a toy, you pretty much should take him at his word. He knows where the sauce is, it's made, and he knows it's not real. I know it's not real, and anybody, including my cat, come on.
Your cat is smarter than any AI.
My cat is smarter than that. So it is by definition a fraud. It is a venture capitalist wet dream. Everybody's going, well, we can get rid of workers. No, you can't get rid of workers unless you're going to put a magic 8-ball on every desk and then walk around and ask it what you think of things. That's what you're going to get. So it's not real. There's no there. Lay down, sir.
Yeah, so I like the image of an endless sea of desks in some Kafka-esque office space, all with magic 8-balls.
That's right.
There was a bit in Brazil like that, where the Christmas gift that everyone got was a little plumb line that you dropped that would either say yes or no. And it was like everyone was getting them at Christmas in the movie Brazil. And we got some good comments here. I'm just going to note somebody does use grammar check on WordPerfect, which someone else finds to be quaint software. Although I will note that WordPerfect was actually sneakily updated into a modern word processor when no one was looking. So
WordPerfect
it was actually kind of elegant. I saw it at some things. A Facebook user says AI is like high fructose corn syrup, sweet to taste, but no nutrition to it whatsoever. That's a lovely image, and a AI could not have generated that simile. Another Facebook user, or perhaps the same one, says, I've seen it called plagiarism software instead of AI. And Cheryl Alexander says, Mr. Howze, what a lovely kitty. I agree, Cheryl. Okay, so you have actually a beautifully rustic scene there with the bamboo painting and the cat. And
this is my actual office. I mean, this is here because my office is in the middle of my living room and people wander back and forth. So when I work for companies or I do online stuff, this is usually what's back there, just to keep it easy and keep low keep bandwidth usage low.
So it's not just your fortress of solitude.
No, it's not.
All right. Whereas Tony is living inside a video game full of books because he's got
Yeah.
All right. And I'm in a haphazard loft area. So, but moving right along. Soon you will see all three of us generated by artificial intelligence having the same conversation, multiple YouTube videos, but it won't be as good as this one because Tony and Thaddeus are quite right about what AI is and isn't. In fact, the term AI has become so watered down that AI researchers now who want like HAL 9000 like AI call it artificial general intelligence. Their holy grail, or AGI. And just let AI be, machine intelligence, scabs. That's another machine scabs. That's my term for the day. So according to a BuzzFeed article by, who is it by? It's by a human, by Victor Tangerman. BuzzFead says its AI is outperforming its pesky human employees. And it noted that, what is it? I'll just quote a couple sentences. The struggling media company BuzzFeed told investors this week that its readers spend 40% more time with its AI-facilitated quizzes than traditional ones, Bloomberg reports. While we've yet to see more detailed breakdown of numbers, it is interesting to see it doubling down on AI after shutting down its entire Pulitzer Prize-winning news division last month, laying off around 120 of its 1,200 employees. So this ties in with the agenda of the people pushing this. And an article in the UK Guardian, an opinion piece called AI Machines Aren't Hallucinating, but Their Makers Are, by Naomi Klein, who is very good. Yeah, right. Like you guys recognize that name too. She's a very good tech writer. So this was a May 8th article of this year. And she notes, this article is about the use of the term hallucination. If you're not familiar with it, the AI companies use hallucinate every time ChatGPT gives you just plain wrong information and makes up random crap, and including sometimes footnotes. But the choice of hallucination is very deliberate because it hides it could be error. That could be the term, or mistakes or whatever. But she notes, and I'll quote, because what she's talking about, it is helpful to think about the purpose of the utopian hallucinations. Now she's talking about the CEO's hallucinations about AI or serving. What said earlier in the article is that AI could be, free us, do that Jetsons thing, free us from our jobs. We could all sit around and create. Like no one's going to buy our creations or get food on our table because, of course, AI is going to be doing it. But that's what they say. That's how they're selling it, right? And she writes, what work are these benevolent stories doing in the culture as we encounter these strange new tools? Here's one hypothesis. They are the powerful and enticing cover stories for what may turn out to be the largest and most consequential theft in human history. Because what we are witnessing is the wealthiest companies in history, that's the tech giants, unilaterally seizing the sum total of human knowledge that exists in digital scrapable form and walling it off inside proprietary products, many of which will take direct aim at the humans whose lifetime of labor trained the machines without giving permission or consent. So again, this article is focused on art and writing AIs, but other jobs that could be taken. I think, in the course of AI coming for our jobs, I think copy editors are one of the first people in the crosshairs, because copy editors, for those who don't, yeah, right. Carol Croby says, "Whoa." Yeah, exactly, Carol. Copy editors, for those who don't know, are a group of people who either work directly for a publisher or are freelance, and they're editors, but they focus on grammar and continuity. Basically, if you make grammar or typos or grammar errors or word choice errors or whatever, or if you say a character has blue eyes in chapter 3, they notice that character has brown eyes in chapter 17. Um, Dale, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. Gershelle says, all those ads for start your career, be a copy editor. Yes, exactly. It's the equivalent of the matchbook that says, can you draw me? You could have a career ahead of you as an artist, get gobbled by Midjourney. So they do the kind of stuff that on the surface is easier for a machine to imitate than, a full-on developmental editor, which is an editor who works directly with the text in a big human way. So I'm going to ask Tony, who has worked with a major publisher as well as with smaller presses, to talk about copy editing and editing and how he thinks that AI might impact or infiltrate those fields.
I think you're right in that copy editing would be the first victim of those two, because it's a lot of people see copy editing as, like you said, you're correcting grammatical errors, continuity errors, and things like that. But in my experience, a copy editor can do something that an AI will never do, and that's offer suggestions. Not trying to write your story, but like, hey, maybe you should, expand on this scene here, or give more character motivation here, things like that you may have missed, while you're writing the story yourself. And that has often turned into some very good critiques for me that I've added to the story, and it improved it. Whereas with editing itself, I see editing almost like I do revising. That some people disagree, but that should not be by an AI. And editing is not like the copy editing. They're not looking for grammatical errors and whatnot. They're looking at structure, narrative, plot, character motivation, theme, things like that, and how that all fits together. What should be cut, brevity, things like that. And an AI could provide some of that, but you're not going to get the same input that you're going to get from a person who's it's not just their job, they're accustomed to reading stories and producing them. What is going to work best for the audience? What are you trying to say? What's best for the story itself? And just like the whole creative process, there's some emotional content involved. The editor, like, hey, this story really moves me. Maybe you should, go for this, or cut this scene, but add more of this. And it's all about the emotional content. And an algorithm or an app is never going to accomplish that. In fact, and that's why I suspect a lot of people who have sampled AI text, it feels soulless and yada, 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 that kind of comment. And I suspect that's one reason why, is there's no human oversight. Art is a human endeavor. And if you take the human out of the creation of that endeavor, well, to me, it's no longer art. It has to have the human element, or it ceases to be, that. It becomes more product than anything else. And let's be honest, when you're trying to get something published, it's ultimately going to be viewed as a product anyway. But at the same time, it should be a product that you have your heart into. And I don't see that happening with something created by AI or edited by it either. You're missing a very key component there that makes it special.
Yeah. Thaddeus, do you want to add to that?
The tool itself, in and of itself, isn't necessarily a bad thing. However, replacing an actual living being with this tool is a mistake. It is hype. It is companies trying to figure out how to save money. It is, unfortunately, a product of our time. We have a civilization that is basically struggling to figure out where it wants to go, what it wants to do, what it's going to hold as a priority. And one of the things that it's decided is that people are not a priority. So we're going to make these technologies, we're going to produce these technologies and say, we're going to cut our workforce in half. So any business that does business, half of its economic existence is put into its payroll. So they figure if we get rid of those people on the payroll, we can then just send that money to the stock investors and into the pockets of the CEO and his executive staff. The truth of the matter is, I'll take a bunch of flawed humans who are trained at what they do over any of those tools, because over time, if my goal is to be creative, people create. AIs iterate. They cannot create. They only reiterate what they know. Which means that if I want to present a story to an editor and say, here's what I want to do, here's what I've written, and you read it, and that editor says to me, well, you know, after 25 years of reading these kinds of stories, I've seen this particular trope so many times. Please don't use that trope. And it's not like it's a bad trope, but it's a trope. It means it's something you see all the time. So they'll say, how about you subvert that trope? Instead of having your protagonist do this, have him do this instead. And it's the same trope, but we're going to subvert it, and we're going to change it. We're going to make it such that it fits in better with everything else that happens in your story, because they've read your story. They've felt your story. They've connected to your story. My Magic 8-Ball, ChatGPT, will never feel my story. It will never understand what I'm writing. And thus it cannot give me the answer that's going to connect me to other readers. So it's a tool, but it is not a tool that should be replacing humans. It's a tool that should be augmenting humans. You know, like in Star Trek, Dr. McCoy is a doctor, but when he opens his tricorder, it isn't because the tricorder is going to diagnose the patient. The tricorder is going to say, here's what I see, here's what I understand, and here's what I think. And then Dr. McCoy says, not that. That's probably the one. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for the human understanding, the knowledge, the experience. That's something that the AI cannot have. It can only, again, reiterate what's been written. And as long as you're stuck reiterating, you cannot create anything new. As writers, I know Tony and I are both writers. Our goal is to connect to our reader, create a new thing, and have that new thing have meaning to you after you're done. The AI doesn't care, and it doesn't know. And so all these companies are saying, we can get rid of our workers and replace them with AI is irresponsible, because people are so much more than just their ability to logically analyze information, which is what computers do really well. They logically analyze a flowchart of data and can pick the right answer from that flowchart. But life is not a flowchart, and stories are not flowcharts, despite what you may have been told by whoever. They require an intuition to know when you're doing it right. And this is not a way that we should be approaching this tool. We should approach it as human-assisted intelligence. It's designed to help me write for you. But if you're saying you can skip me and just use it, it'll work for a minute. But eventually, what you'll see is the repeat of story elements that have happened in other places, because the software cannot learn and it cannot iterate. And when it becomes general intelligence, that future mystery of Skynet and Terminators and all that other stuff, well, then we'll have a different conversation, assuming it allows us to have that conversation. Because if it's that awesome, it may not want us talking about it, and we might not be able to. But right now, they can't do anything. They're just toys. Like I said, Magic 8-Ball with delusions of grandeur.
Very nicely put. That also segues into another AI writing world controversy that has hit in the last few days, which I just now lost on my not AI assisted tablet, but it is called pseudo-write, and it's a tech startup product. And see if I can find recently one of the more prominent writers in our field, who I like and respect, said that they are going to be teacher, like a professor working with students wanting to use pseudo-write, and this immediately sparked a big firestorm in the field, in a tempest in the teapot of written science fiction, because here it is, because all of the concerns that Tony and Thaddeus just mentioned about job loss, but also what the writer I'm discussing and seems to interpret pseudo-write, and the company that's making it is selling pseudo-write as, is just that, what Thaddeus was talking about, a tool for living writers, to human writers to write with as a tool. And it does various tasks. I'm not going to go into detail, but it's like AI assisted writing. So here's some of the things. The AI can also suggest, and I'm quoting James Yu. Note that I'm always mentioning the humans who write things. I'm quoting James Yu, the CEO of the company that makes pseudo-write. The AI, from his Twitter account, the AI can also suggest beats as well, story beats. And in those cases, it can really feel like you're mind melding with a machine in your novel. He says, there are two key things we learned. First, that the writers and the AI need to have shared context on the story from high to low granularity. That is why SE is arranged in columns from the 50K foot view of a stream of consciousness brain dump down to each chapter. Secondly, we discovered there needs to be, quote, glue, unquote, that guides the AI on how to write each scene coherently. So it's writing. Yeah, we're calling these scene beats. You can think of them as a series of interconnected prompts that define the actions in each scene. Yes, we're calling them scene beats, as if we invented the term scene beats. But the next little touch there. So I've never met James Yu, but he is not doing a good first. He's not giving me a good first impression, given the way he writes and talks about this stuff. But it sounds like one of the. It basically sounds like he's selling a ghostwriter, doesn't it?
Pretty much.
Right? Like it reads like those ads, like, oh, you always wanted to learn how to write it. You always wanted to write a book, but you don't want to learn how to write a book, and you're too lazy to write a book. So our crack team of essay and book writer ghostwriters is here to help you. Just give us money, and you will see a product book with your story idea on a bookstore shelf, or at least on Amazon with the other 5 million self-published titles.
It's a grift.
Out every minute. Yeah, what?
It's a grift.
Yeah, it does look like, it does seem like, and that's how the community has reacted. Although, again, this is not trying to take anyone's, ghostwriters' jobs, I suppose. It's trying to take ghostwriters' jobs, but it's not trying to take the author on the, the book spine, the author's job, because it's trying to market to them. It's like the entire suite of Writer's Digest products. It's the customer is the authors, right? Or the wannabe authors. So I was wondering if either of you gentlemen had anything to say about pseudo-write and possible similar things that we're going to see coming in the future.
Pseudo-write, Jasper, what else we got out there? I mean, there's 50, at least 50 writing tools right now that people are using, and some people will tell you it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. It has enabled my ability to be creative. Other people will tell you it's made their work easier, and I say to you, using those tools is hurting you. And here, let me explain it, because I know people are going to get mad when I say this. I am not saying you cannot use these tools. I am saying, from the experience of a person who's been a writer and struggled now for 13 years. If you're using those tools to gather your ability to understand how to write a story, what you're doing is you're shortcutting the process that your mind needs to get used to writing in that fashion. So, for example, I write every day. I never know what I'm going to write. Some days it's a short story, other days it's an article, some days it's an analysis, some days it's a commentary, but I write every day. The trick is, because I write every day, I can put myself into a mindset to write every day. And when I find a thing, I enter the zone. And when you're in the zone, you're just banging it out. My wife is like, "Up, he's in the zone." I don't, she doesn't hear me saying anything. All she hears is the McKees flying. And I'm in the zone, and she knows I'm in the zone, and she doesn't bother me. She just does whatever she's doing. But to get to be able to be in the zone is like exercise. It's like sports. You have to be doing it. You have to be focused on it. And if you are interrupting your flow to ask ChatGPT something, you know what you're not getting? You're not getting the zone. You're depending on a tool that will help you do a thing, but it's defeating your ability to acquire the natural skill set necessary to tell stories effectively. It hurts you. It takes it from you. It prevents you from making that mental connection, because rather than building the neurons necessary to do this work, you're saying, I'm going to go get that tool. You need practice. Practice is the art of writing. And if you're not doing that, what you're setting yourself up for is a dependence on a tool that will never make you a great writer. You'll be an adequate writer. You'll be an okay writer. You'll be able to deliver your facts relatively well. But to be great, to be able to tap into your inner experience and share that with other people in a way that is meaningful, you will never achieve that. It's not personal. And a whole bunch of people will get by being serviceable writers. I will be one of them. I plan to be a great writer because I will practice and get my brain to agree with me that we can do this thing, build the neurons necessary to tell those stories, and effectively get those stories into the world the way I want them, not the way that my tool wants them, not the way this suggests. I don't care about that tool. I want my tool, this, billions of years of evolution. I want that to be working. And we, as creators, cannot let tools dictate to us how we create. Your hammer does not tell you how to build a house. It does not. Hey, hammer, should we drive a nail? Yeah, I can do that. And you and your hammer drive nails till the cows come home. If you say, hammer, should we add a section to our house and what should it look like? Hammer says, hey, man, if there's no nails involved in this, I can't help you. That's the truth of it. So let us acknowledge our superior human capacities, train those capacities to their best ability, and you may find you hit a wall. Matter of fact, if you're a good writer, you hit the wall regularly because you're always trying to exceed your previous work. But that is the job of a writer, to create and exceed one's previous expectations. ChatGPT will never get you there. None of those tools will. They will make you look smart, but in the end, people can tell the difference, and they always will. They'll know a writer that's writing from a gut experience versus a writer writing from a canned experience that looks like someone else is writing. And hell, if you're not careful, you could turn around and find that this tool is literally lifting pages from other places and dropping them into your work. I can't have that. That will never do. Just won't do.
That's a really good point there, because it does that.
It does that, yes.
Yeah. Tony, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, Thaddeus just did that's a perfect answer. I'm not sure I can add.
Tough act to
I
follow.
will comment about the craft, the process of the craft. He's 100% right. It has to come from you. You can't get an easy out. It's like when it's like lifting weights or exercise. Everybody wants the magic pill, the magic solution. Let me go to GNC and buy this powder or this drink or yada. No, that's irrelevant if you're not putting in the actual work. It's like learning guitar. If you're not practicing every day, you have to put the effort into it. I can't remember the exact source, but allegedly Noam Chomsky said that these programs are more or less allowing people to cheat. I think his comment was something to the effect of it's laziness, and you're bypassing the entire process to get straight to the product. And that's not what art is. Regardless of the medium, sculpture, writing, film, it's the process is a part of the journey. And if you don't have that, as Thaddeus perfectly pointed out, well, are you even a writer at that point? I mean, you're just somebody compiling data, and like he said, it could steal things from other sources. It takes from that database. That's how it creates. And how do you know you're just not using someone else's phrases? And No, I would not want that. So he's 100% correct on that. Yeah.
So I'm noticing, and there's some comments also in the chat that are sparking my own thoughts because I'm a human and not an AI. That the aims that, because I'm also, as you know, a writer, the aims of being a writer, right? Like what makes us be writers is different than the aims of what they're selling. Even something like pseudo write, right? Where they're not trying to completely take the writer out of the equation because the writer is their customer base. They're selling efficiency and the quick solution to get to a product, which then hits market and makes money. But that's not, nobody writes for that reason. I mean, a lot of people are under the misapprehension that, oh, if I could write a book or two, I would make rich. I would become rich like Stephen King, because all writers are like Stephen King, and famous like Ernest Hemingway, and smart like Dorothy Parker, right? Like, no. You know, why we write, why we sit at a computer or with a, there are some tools that don't impact in the way that these tools do, like the difference between writing by hand or dictating to a recorder or writing in a word processor, or even a kind of souped up word processor like Scrivener, which is an IDE, an integrated development environment for writing. All of these things are tools that help the writer, but they don't interrupt the flow the way that Thaddeus is talking about interrupting the flow. But we write because we want the experience of writing, right? And the market for pseudo-write is people who want to have written. And I do know some writers who enjoy having written and like their name in the book, don't really like the process of writing. But most of us, however much we bitch and moan and complain about the process of writing, and however many walls we hit, as Thaddeus says, hitting the walls is part of the point, right? I mean, the writing is an attempt to do a soul-to-soul communication. And, you know, whether the work actually sells, I mean, it's always great when you can sell a work and actually get money. That's good, especially if it's your primary occupation. But also the satisfaction of selling and the knowledge that people will, like, I once held on to a story that every pro market rejected for like 12 years. But I didn't want to sell it to a semi-pro market because I wanted the biggest readership for this story. This was a very important story to me. And I finally, a new pro market opened up and I sold it a couple of years ago. So that was not, and it was a short piece. And so the pennies per word difference between the pro sale I made and a semi-pro sale I might have made was, I don't know, maybe $50, $80 tops, right? It didn't much matter that it was a pro market from the money point of view. I just wanted more people to see it so I could communicate with more people. And that is what drives us. And a shared humanity. And if, you know, you're an alien from another planet who's writing a shared Borgian or whatever, right? You know, it's still a living being.
Well, that's what art is.
Yeah.
That's what art is the transference of ideas. That's why Stephen King referred to novels as almost like a time machine. I can read, you know, something written, you know, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. That novel's what, 2 centuries old or so, something like that. And, you know, that's wonderful. And AI will never impart that. And see, there's something else I like to touch on. The process of writing and creating art, any art, it should be a journey for the artist as well. And you're not just creating a journey for the audience. It's a journey for yourself. You like the research you do for a novel. That's an opportunity for the writer to learn, to add to your own knowledge, to learn something about other cultures, how other people think, how they live, and how you can extrapolate that for your own work. And an AI will never give you that. And by the way, the pseudocode things, it makes me think of vanity publishers. For $5,000, we can publish your novel and do a cover and ISBN number, blah, blah, blah. and nobody buys the thing because there's no advertising. It's a grift. It's a money making scheme. It's all about this. And yeah, I love it when someone buys my books. I mean, that's great. But it's like you said, Cliff, it's about outreach. How many people can I reach with this story and hopefully inspire with it? One of my favorite emails, I wish I had saved it. My first novel, some guy emailed me, said he was undergoing chemotherapy treatments, and it was very hard for him to stay up. He'd be exhausted, but he stayed up late every night to read some of my book, and I will never forget that. Do you think something created by an AI is going to deliver that? I don't know. I'm not patting myself on the back here. I mean, that's just an example. And you take that element out of it, you don't have anything. So it's, yeah. Anyway, sorry.
Sure. No, that's great. That's part of it, right? Like we hope to connect and make a difference to someone, and you never know what it'll be. Like we all have those stories that when we were 12, right? The old saying, the golden age of science fiction is 12.
Yeah.
Right? We all have those stories and books that made an overly large impact on our young selves. And they could have been different books, if we had picked up different books, but they happened to be the books that they were, and that's real, right? And so I know when I write, I do have that sense of responsibility that I could be writing somebody's, something they pick up as 12 or whatever, and has an oversized impact. So I better get it right, right? Because I can't be lazy about the truths I'm telling when I write. Especially fiction, but also an essay about the human condition, right? And speaking of essays, I did an essay that I posted to Facebook a while back, where I talked about how I thought AI was going to go in terms of whose jobs it was coming for first. And I did think that media tie-in fiction is going to be one of the first places they're really going to try it. And one thing they could do, if there's, if the media companies are mostly interested in making money, is one place that some people will decide they'll do with something like ChatGPT is write media tie-in fiction for themselves. Right? Have it write. They'll, tell a story idea and it'll write something and they'll enjoy it. And then when this generative AI gets better at it, they'll post it to fan fiction sites. And places like Disney or whoever owns the actual copyright could just lift whatever they want from these fan fiction sites and publish them, if they in a way that makes them money. So that I see that the authors I know who are writing media tie-in fiction, some of it darn good, some of it better than the media that they're right. Like there was just a whole novel about Vasquez from Aliens, which was a deep dive into the human condition. There's stuff that is actually really very good in media tie-in. And there's also stuff, by the way, that's really very good in fan fiction that is also meaningful to people and making connections, and in some cases much more thoughtful storytelling than some of the original TV shows and whatever, which were written rather quickly in order to put food on the table sometimes. So not denigrating those either, but you can get really good stuff in fan fiction, media tie-in. But I think that that's going to be the first place they're going to try to replace the writers, and then all the editors, copy editors who would have worked with them, right? And then they'll try to hire those same writers to go through it and clean up the inconsistencies and then shove it out the door, right? Like someone needs to, I don't have the time to look up the info on the Vasquez novel, but I think it's just called Vasquez. If someone else in the chat could look that up. Yeah, it came out this year. That's my sort of incoherent version of a rant that I actually wrote and edited and properly was coherent on. and I just think they're going to try and do that first. They're going to try and get that first, and because also there's a lot more money to be made in media tie-in. Tony has found the Vasquez book.
Yeah.
It's on Amazon. It's not hard to find.
Yeah, what's the author's name again?
V. Castro.
V. Castro.
V. Castro, yes. And it's just called Vasquez, right?
Aliens Vasquez, yes.
By V. period Castro. Yes. So anyway, my point is, it's going to be a line of it. It's not going to all happen at once, right? It's kind of like insidiously creeping in to the field from various ways. And so, since we're coming towards the end of the podcast, I'm going to ask my science fiction writer guests to be science fiction writers and suggest where they think this is going to try and creep. And that's my suggestion of how I think it's going to start creeping into the field. Where do y'all see it coming in, and how can we, as human beings, try and channel this human-made technology in a more human way? Any thoughts on that? I mean, this podcast is part of my effort to try and redirect the tide of history in a small way.
While you think, Tony, I'm going to go ahead and answer. I think I got one.
All right.
When you're looking at writing, I'm a writer. So what I do is I decide what I want to write about. Now, it's weird. Very often, I will base a lot of what I'm writing on whatever's going on in the world and ask myself, could this be better? Could we make this better? And if we were going to make it better, what would that look like? And when I do that, by definition, I've already entered a region where ChatGPT cannot go, because I'm asking a question about a thing that hasn't happened yet that I want to think about and ask, what do I see happening in the future? ChatGPT cannot help me because the only thing it knows is what happened yesterday. It cannot predict the future. It can iterate an idea. It can, if I give it an idea, then it could say, well, in the past, we saw this, and this. Feudalism, very common, very popular all over the world. If you read any science fiction stories, you will find that feudalism, or neo-feudalism, it looks like feudalism, is still in those stories. But that is an idea that's from yesterday. The writers who write solarpunk, for example, are trying to find new ways of approaching the world. And for them, what's gone in the past is bad. And they don't want to look at that. They want to create something new, except there is very little that's new in the world. But if they use ChatGPT will go back and say, hey, these were all ideas of kinds of governments that existed in the past. And how do we deal with that? And then they say, well, let's make a new way of merging some old ideas and make something new. And ChatGPT will be, well, I have no idea what to do for you because it doesn't exist. That's your job as the creator, to make a new thing, to challenge the old things. Will this technology replace writers? Never well, never effectively, and always at a cost to the person consuming the media. The media that you're getting from these products will never be as good as something that a talented, experienced writer has created. Could I take everything Stephen King ever wrote, put it in a Chat GPT engine, and create a new book? Yes. And it'll be an old book. It'll be an old book. It'll be a Stephen King old book. Insert monster, insert some town in Maine, insert strange weather phenomena, and we'll mash it together. New Stephen King novel. And it will look just like all of the other ones. And it probably will sell like all the other ones, because what you're doing is recreating what already exists. But if you're wanting something new and wanting someone to take risks, that is not where those machines lie. So for people like me who create, we're upset not because ChatGPT exists. We're upset because someone thinks it's better than us. Have you looked at Hollywood lately? It ain't great out there. They're not writing new. Matter of fact, they refuse to write anything new. Even successful writers can't get anything new out there. And when they take risks and produce something new, it's always amazing. There's a series called Primal. I don't know if anybody's ever seen it, but if you haven't seen it, there are no words in this series. There are no words. Nobody talks. It's literally a story in pictures. And yet that story is compelling. It is vital. It is living, because the writer decided what they wanted was a story you could tell in pictures and still have strong emotions. I would love to see the script for this series because it is basically just a bunch of scenes describing a thing, but the emotion in the series is real, and you cannot do that with ChatGPT because it doesn't take risks. We need risk taking. Creativity is risk. If you want us to write good stories, you have to be able to take risk. And that is not something these machines can ever do. And like I said, the day that they are able to do that, well, then we should all get a UBI because, society will be fabulously rich and I will be able to sit around and do whatever I want. And we've entered the Star Trek post-scarcity universe where I just sit around and let machines entertain me. Or that's the culture. I'm sorry. Ian Banks' culture where the machines do everything. And humans are just like chilling. Hey, what are we doing today? Oh, I don't know. I got another 500 years of chilling. I'm sure I can something to do. They're immortal. They have nothing but time on their hands. What is that like? I wouldn't know because I'm stressing to make creative new endeavors. The series is called Primal, written by Denny Tartakovsky.
Yeah, the same guy who did the original Clone Wars and
Samurai Jack.
Samurai Jack, yeah.
He's amazing. He's amazing. And he said, I pitched 16 new ideas and nobody let me do any of them. So he said, I went back and rehashed 2 others and they gave the thumb up on those. And he was pissed. And I don't blame him because TV is a wasteland now. We can do better. Let us do better. Let us tell stories. Give us the opportunity to be different. Because I don't know about you, but I'm so sick of the 80s. And this is the year 2023. And I'm still seeing stuff that looked like it was written in 1980. Let the 80s die. Let them die. What will kids 20 years from now get to read? I don't know because we aren't writing it. Anyway, I'm sorry. Tony, go.
Tony, talk.
I'm keeping my synthwave. I'm not getting rid of my synthwave music. So.
You put me on to Gunship, dude. I love it.
Oh, yeah, Gunship's good.
Yeah.
As far as like, where is this technology going? I'm not 100% sure. It's not disappearing. The genie's out of the bottle. This is part of the toolbox, whether we like it or not. I think the question now is, I would like to see some regulations, preferably on the federal level and not the state level. You might get it on the international level, whether China will go along with that or not, I don't know. But as far as just my imagination stirring, I would love to see something. I just had a story idea. What if you had someone, create new novels based on the works of deceased authors? Let's say it's Ayn Rand or Robert Heinlein or somebody. Yes, that's why I said
very appropriate.
But see, here's the story: is that somebody creates this novel and puts it out. Well, this is an undiscovered work of Rand's, and we're going to put it out here. And you'd have like almost cultish behavior of someone believing it. She actually read that. You'd have like a arguments between Randites or whatever you want to call them. I would just, but that's just me extrapolating. But honestly, where it's going, I suspect it'll get more and more refined. I'm hoping we see regulations, and I almost feel sorry for these people who were going after it for a quick fix or to save some time or to create a quick product, because that is a very short-term investment. It's not going to pay off in the long run. As Thaddeus said, we're not going anywhere. The real question is, it's going to come down to how are we regarded by the industry, publishing industry, Hollywood. How will we get paid? Well, we can just get, this AI, this program to do that. That's the real problem. We're not going to get replaced. We're going to get downgraded. We're going to be appreciated even less. We're going to receive even less money. It is hard as hell to make it as a writer. I work a part-time job just to have time to write. And that may not be the smartest economic thing I've ever done, but, so far so good. But that's what's going to happen. It's hard as hell right now to get your foot in the door published in the publishing industry. And this is just going to make it harder. And I love Kindle. I love what Amazon's done to a certain degree. I don't like Amazon's other practices. I prefer, reading on my tablet. So I love that aspect. And KDP has opened the doors for a lot of people to publish that wouldn't be able to otherwise. That's great. But you also have to separate the wheat from the chaff and look at all the stuff that gets put on Kindle that's not so good. I suspect that will get 100 times worse now because of these programs. People will flood the market. It's like the guy, that article circulating, I can't remember his name, but he generated the entire book using these apps, cover, the text, everything. And he put it out there. And this article's, I think it's very clickbaity. I made thousands on my book. And it's like, if you read the article and do the math, he only made a few bucks per book. And I think he spends 7 hours per book making or something like that. It's not worth the time investment. He's not a millionaire because of this, but the article makes it sound that way. That's what's going to happen is we're going to get less money. We're going to get less respect. We're going to get devalued unless we stand up for this. I love looking at Twitter and looking at the reactions to like all these things. The pitchforks and torches are out, but they should be. People are pissed, and it's not just devaluing art. You're devaluing us. And this isn't about money. Oh, you're just afraid they're going to take your money. Oh yeah, no. This is, you put your heart into this stuff, and this people come along and just, oh, okay, well, I'll just make that like you can. Okay, it's just, that's what I worry about. But anyway,
yeah, it's the equivalent of the person at a party who finds out you're a writer and says, "Oh, you're a writer. I have this idea. I'll tell you the idea, you write it, and we'll split it 50-50. Now they're saying that to ChatGPT. So at least maybe that's an upside that we hadn't considered.
Let me add a thought there, Cliff.
Okay, we gotta wrap it up. Yes.
That the art created with any of these generative tools has no copyright. This is, in my mind, the worst aspect of it all. So any art you create this way has no copyright, meaning you don't own it, neither does anyone else. Why create something you literally have no copyright for, you have no protection for? It's not, there's no there. When you're done, the thing that you're holding is not a book. It is an idea that a machine tried to create and sell as a book, and that you agreed to work with it to do that. But you didn't write a book. You had an idea, and a machine wrote the book. That book has no copyright. The art created on Midjourney, unless you do a lot of retooling or a lot of specialized design, it is not copyrightable. So we are creating art that isn't art.
Thaddeus?
Yes, sir.
We're running real short of time.
I know.
But
I know.
Sorry, that's my fault. I'm moderating.
I had a question for you that I wanted you to. I'm not sure. How sure are you correct that you can't copyright an AI book?
Well, currently you cannot copyright an AI book. Now, will that change?
Heavily.
Again?
You have to modify it heavily?
Yeah, you have to modify it. It has to be, you have to show that you've done significant work for it to be considered a copyrightable thing. Yeah. Currently, if your book is written by ChatGPT or any of those other tools, it's not real.
That brings us to the point where I had the real question that says, okay, I've heard all you guys made some really interesting points, some very hopeful points, optimistic points even. The question now is, what when the next layer, when you get into that privacy agreement that's 200 pages long and 4-point font, that says ChatGPT owns whatever's produced with it, or a significant percentage of it. When does that kick? When does
another reason not to do it?
Yeah, I'm certain that might already exist. I'm certain if we go through and read their terms of use, it probably says something ridiculous like that. I haven't read it all, but I'm betting that's the case, which is another reason to avoid it. Anything I write, I wrote it. You know that. I know that. We're good.
Now, as I warned you guys, I come on at the end and I do my commercial for B-Cube Press. And I got to say, I think everybody here has, like I said, put forth some very good points and such. So thank you, Thaddeus. And thank you, this other guy.
Tony.
The other guy.
I said this other guy.
That's okay.
That's my new bar.
I can see your name, but I'm never going to pass up.
Bob, we will never be able to replace you with an AI. Clearly.
You know, that's a interesting concept. No, I was telling you guys beforehand, John Wayne, as soon as they come up with enough money to pay off his estate, we'll make some good movies, some more movies. Just how it's going to be. I'm not saying they're going to be good, but they're going to be out there. So now, with that said, let me tell you a little bit. This is a BQ Press function. BQ Press right now, we got two really big things going on. One, I bought a house and I'm moving. So I'm not ignoring those of you who have sent me notes saying, yeah, as the winds sweep me to the next question about the home owner's insurance and release of blah, blah, But we have got, that's one thing going on. The other one is we got open calls out. And Tony, you might be interested in this one. It is Scott's Planet. And don't worry, it doesn't close for another week. 1,300 colonists that, got caught up when colonization was cheap and easy in the beginning. And then all of a sudden, the corporation found out how much it cost to maintain some colonies that they put on planets that didn't have the money to make. And so they've sent them all a note saying, thank you very much, we're leaving. And they're on their own. And they'll offer to stop and pick you up on the way home if you want to go. But you don't take anything with you. And they will take you to what is essentially one step above a prison planet where you'll be able to work for the rest of your days for the company. That one is out on Moksha under BQ Press, and it closes in a week. But I tell you what, anybody who's got a story for it and sends me a note, I will wait for their story while I'm going through and reading all of the others, finish reading period, because I am so one of the reasons AI will never replace me. I am so sleazily flexible on stuff like this. Like, okay, I told you had to have
fighting AIs,
but just go ahead, get it to me next week, and we'll be fine. And the other one is holiday, or not holiday leftovers, but Madam President is a soon-to-be released version coming up. But we have alternative leadership. And the concept of alternative leadership is it's an anthology where we're exploring how non-traditional people get into non-traditional leadership roles. Okay. And this is not, we're not just talking about people of color rising in the spectrum, or women rising to, I mean, when was the last time you thought about a former NFL linebacker heading up the National Organization of Women? That would fall into an example of something I don't think anybody's going to write me that story, because I don't think it could sell. But the idea is it's a non-traditional leadership, and and the role matters, and it's how do you get there, how do you maintain it, and how do you survive, manage. It's there's a lot of thought can go into some stories, and we've seen some really good ones. The other one we have out there that right now is our very first book at BQ Press that we published was called Alternative Truths, and it's dedicated to the memory of Kellyanne Conway, describing the crowd at the inauguration.
Oh.
Yeah,
The massive crowds. Get it right.
Yeah. Well, we use alternative facts.
Right.
Yeah. And the right wing in this country, because I am firmly of the belief that nobody lies as well as the far left or the far right. And the far left just isn't as good at it as the far right.
Give us time, damn it.
So, but anyway, we thought we'd put an end to that series, and then all of a sudden along comes Don't Say Gay, or we're going to take away your company's business license or ability to operate because we don't like your politics, or you don't like ours well enough, or taking over universities, or all the things that you'll see them doing, or go down to Mississippi. or Texas. We're in Texas, where they pass special laws about how you count the votes in counties over a certain size, of which there is only one, and happens to be the one that voted for Biden. So, I mean, little things like this where we're seeing the birthing of the baby that was spawned when Trump first screwed America. So it's called Alternative Truth Southern Edition. Bless their hearts.
Oh, nice. That's the coup de grace right there. Bless you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we're having fun with it. And so those three are currently taking stories. And I'm just hoping that the guests on the show today will find it in their heart to go read those open calls and say, yeah, I could do that. As well as any writers that are out there say, yeah, I got a chat GPT that could just put one of them stories out right away. Oh, wait.
Be careful what you wish for.
I'm kidding, guys.
Oh, I'm pretty certain someone will do that. But like I said, these are the kind of things where I just don't see this tool making it. It requires...
Yeah,
we tried depth.
Oh, go ahead there. I'm sorry, Thaddeus.
No, it requires depth. It just requires some visual depth, some intellectual depth to be able to try and go there. And I just can't see this tool doing that.
All right, before we go, I know we've put in the QR codes for people live, but for people seeing this later, Tony, Thaddeus, plug one book real quick.
Redshift Runners. It's a space opera about space pirates that are, instead of stealing things, they're actually stealing food and whatnot to help starving colonists.
Thaddeus?
My book is Hayward's Reach. It's a collection of, it's a thematic collection, meaning all the stories, while apparently separate and individually written, were thematically woven together to tell a larger story. So there are a variety of kinds of fiction, a variety of kinds of stories, and each one of those stories feeds into a larger meta story. And it's the kind of storytelling I like to do best.
And I love
that one.
I love the concept.
And I've got a couple of stories out in anthologies this year. Already out. I have the title story in High Noon on Proxima B from Baen Books. And forthcoming next month, or either June or July, Shared World, created by Cadwell Turnbull, called Many Worlds. And that anthology is coming out from Radix Media in Brooklyn. Oh, there! Thank you, Tony. That's great. That's the High Noon cover. Yeah, those are my stories that are out this year. Up.
All righty. Now, next week we're going to be at MissCon, and so we're going to be doing this live from MissCon, and it's still going to be Jim Wright and David Gerald. But we may be able to convince Todd Lockwood and my God, he's going to shoot me because he's done so much work to help us. But every now and then I have a brain dump.
Well, while you're thinking of it, I'm going to answer
Jeff Sturgeon.
What is it?
Jeff Sturgeon.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, he's got some great art out there. Now, what were you going to say, sir?
Oh, one of the people in the chat about halfway down asked me if they could use a quote I said with attribution. Absolutely. I think we all are. I mean, this is going out on YouTube, and if you want to quote us with attribution, have at. I think we're all okay with that. Thank you. And I'm honored you would ask. All right.
Yeah, there's been definitely some quotable moments coming on here. So that said, I will see you next weekend from MissCon. And one minor point. If you have kids and you're bringing them to MissCon, there's one of my favorite things to do is I take all the old scrap wood that I get when a tree falls down or something breaks, and I turn them into wands.
Ooh.
And sorry, Mom and Dad, you can't buy one. But you bring your kid by the booth, I'll give your kid one.
That's awesome.
And hey, we took over 100 of them to Ireland for Worldcon.
Poof.
It was fun.
Wow. Awesome. I love that.
Thank you. All right. So thank you, Bob, for creating this podcast. Thank you, Thaddeus and Tony, for excellent contributions to
My
today's.
pleasure, Cliff. Thank you.
I'm